All right, go ahead.
Call to order the April meeting for BIARC is 12:06, and there's a quorum of 5. I, Thomas.
There's six.
Six with William.
Oh, man, I gotta pay attention. Hi, William. Quorum is 6. And that's myself, Thomas Avila. William Bohemus is joining us via online there. Tony Kitchen, Mr. David Miller, Sean Farley, and Joseph Rosenbaum. All right. Hey, Alan. All right. Thanks. So we're recording. We'll start off with secretary's report and minutes.
Did everybody receive it, have a chance to take a look at it? Are there any questions, comments, or anything? William, anybody? Think of the motion?
I move to accept the.
David first, and you second.
All in favor of accepting?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sweet. Let's see, treasurer's report. Tony.
Okay, I just want to start with making a note that we have one of our newest members joining us today for the executive board meeting, Alan McBride.
Right.
So welcome. This is the executive board meeting, and you're welcome to stay and monitor this meeting. The regular club activity begins at 2.
I figured I'd come to the 2:00 meeting this afternoon.
Yep. So you're on the executive board link, and that's fine. And you can just change when we're done. You can turn off your meeting and join the other meeting at 2.
Agreed.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here if I can. Let's see. Present. And they changed the interface a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that too. It's just a little different now.
Hey, we got public access to the wireless here, right?
That's right.
I think I go, Alan.
Okay. William, can you see the financial statement as of the 12th?
I sure can.
All right. So I sent this out this morning, sometime shortly after midnight, I think. Any questions, comments?
Looks great.
I thought I would mention that I do have one $25 PayPal payment, and I cannot figure out who it's from.
Oops.
It shows a company name that has something to do with drones. I sent an email to the email address. No one responded. So there was no listing for the oddball company name.
It
And
might be somebody out of Southern California. I'll dig through my emails because he had mentioned something, but then he never corresponded again. And that was, I think, right before all those fires broke out, or like maybe right after. But I'll check on my end if there's anything. A paper
yeah,
trail
so I
and a
couldn't
name.
Google him. He didn't respond to my query by email. So we've got a 48th member that's paid that I don't know who it is.
Okay.
Hey,
And-
Tony, if you don't get that pinned down here pretty soon, if you shoot me the details, I have some professional resources I can use to skip trace people left over from my law enforcement days, and I might have better luck.
Yeah, basically I've got an email address or a Gmail address.
Yeah, and the company name.
Yeah. Okay, the only disbursement was the $88 payment for field day rental of the wedding pavilion. We'll get $50 of that back, hopefully, if we don't trash the place. And I did not pay yet for the Google Workspace or the insurance. The insurance is coming due. I'll probably pay it next month. That'll be $200 for the general liability insurance. And that's the only expense I know of coming up right at the moment. That's it for me.
All right.
I move to approve Tony's report subject to audit. This is William.
I'll second that.
Seconded by David. All in favor of accepting this?
Aye.
All right. Let's see. Digital systems. Any report on that?
member, but I'm not the chair.
Gotcha.
I have not been a member. I have not heard anything
Okay.
about that.
Yeah.
I know
No
it's
report.
Incredibly busy.
Okay. Well, nothing changed, nothing mentioned then.
Yeah, I don't even want.
I can email
I can
him
offer things.
later. I can email him later, see if he has anything I can put in the report.
Okay. And add later.
Yeah.
Just in case.
that's the-
Okay.
And he's
We'll put-
aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. no
Yeah.
worries.
Yeah. We'll put a pin in that then.
Yeah.
Education and outreach. You guys are always busy.
Yeah, we've had a quiet month really, but I sent out this report. I can go through it, and hit the high spots anyway.
Yeah.
We've all had a chance to look at it. Welcome Alan for joining in. You're the newest member of the HPP emergency radio team as well, so good. And we attended the ARRL Pacific Division Town Hall meeting in early March. And we've done a couple of siren test participations through Tony primarily and the civil defense. Supporting the HPP again, sirens that we've been involved with, but I know there's people within the club that have supported sirens throughout Puna, and I think that's an important one to do. And we, on March 7th, we attended the Education Outreach Committee outreach session at the Hilo Union Elementary. We've been there a couple of times and always had good reception on our radios and from the participants. So it was a good session. And monthly fire meetings, of course. We had a CERT training in April that I missed, unfortunately. And let's see. What else will we do? May 7th is our next significant event, and that's the Keone Poco Elementary School down on back towards your area, I think, William, in Ocean.
Yeah, that's Kahakai Boulevard, just at the top
Yeah.
of Hawaiian beaches.
Right. Yeah, so you're probably the closest participant here for that school. We've never been there.
Unless we get Hank, he's actually closer than I am because he's actually in Hawaiian beaches.
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit below him.
All right. Okay, we'll be talking to you. Thank you. Okay, so that's our next significant event, May 7th. And the YMCA and future events throughout the summer are still formulating. And we've got a good basic membership, committee membership, Fred Fisher, Joe, of course, Jim. Half of the crew is here. Mark's usually here. Let's get here, Lee Critchlow. So more to come on our outreach. Any questions? That's it.
All right. Does there have to be a movement to that, or I mean?
I don't think so. It's just a status report.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Well,
Let's see. Moving on to, I actually might need glasses soon.
Education and outreach.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so next up is operating activities.
Operating activities. This month, we secured the reservations at Wailoa State Park Field Day on June 28th. End report.
Okay.
You might want to add that the check-in is 8:30 and we've got it 8:30 a.m. till 8 p.m.
8 PM, you said?
Yeah. So technically, the max capacity is 15 people there at any given time for
Yeah.
that site. I doubt they're gonna be, hopefully they won't be pushing that too hard.
No.
And with the state, and this bothers me, whether it's the county or the state, but they have you check a list. They have like 10 check boxes or 12 check boxes where you got to tell them what you're going to be doing there.
Right.
Check boxes like, I'm having a luncheon or I'm having a meeting. But then they say really general language, like any community event requires a special access permit, language like that, right? And then they make it extremely difficult to get a special access permit. Now, the instructions on the website said, go ahead and apply and pay for your regular permit. And then if somebody determines that you need a special use permit, then you would do that. So that's different than how the county does it. But we didn't get a special use permit last time. So basically the bottom line is if we got a state employee who was having a bad day, they could give us a hard time. But chances are it's a non-issue.
State employees don't work Saturdays, so I think we're all right.
All right. Thanks, William. Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Next up, program.
So, sorry I've been incommunicado. You guys know I've been real sick and traveling, which has just made me catch more things. So, I see actually in the email from Joe that there were other programs for today. I was prepared to present today. It wasn't the one that we had hoped for because none of the emergency management professionals got back to me. We were hoping to do a pre-hurricane season preparedness talk from a public safety professional. The ones that were willing that did get back to me weren't available, and I kept going to alternates, and they were less and less willing. So I'm still going to work on that, for later in the year, maybe July. So I do have one. If we don't use it today, it'll go back to being what it was, which is the one I have in the bag, which is home building. And I had it most of the way through, so I just threw some extra images into it last night, which is really what it needed. So it's ready, and I can present that today if we want. Then next month is the May meeting, which is our semi-annual, membership meeting or business meeting, however you want to put it. And usually we have, some sort of light topical discussion that we add to that, not really a full program, but something to add a little bit of spice to it. So it's not just, handling motions and whatnot, but sometimes those meetings, actually talk so much, membership oriented stuff. People want to talk about, where the club's going and stuff that we don't get it. So that's next month. And I don't have the light topical thing to add to that if we need to fill it out and add a little bit of color to it. But that since it's such a light thing, that'll be easy to do between now and then. And if anybody else wants that optional time, let me know, because it's the perfect opportunity to get out to the membership. So if you've got something that you want that is purely a get out the message thing, it's the right time to do it. The following month after that, of course, is June, which is our pre-field day meeting. So the June meeting is generally done with field day. I wouldn't say planning, because the planning is largely already done, but field day preparatory discussion. And generally we do, some sort of presentation that's again smaller within that discussion on field day techniques, field day setup techniques, or filtering techniques, or whatever the case may be. So that's coming up for June, and then July is open. So if I don't present this one that I have in the bag right now, it's ready for July just in case. But July, I think, is the one where I'm going to try again to get public safety professionals to come and speak to us. And then August and beyond is less pinned down. I still have some suggestions in the list that Joe compiled for me. And in addition to that, I have a guest speaker that I want to get onto the board. It's a gentleman from a company called NVIS. So as you may guess, and actually some people own some of their antennas, they are in a commercial HF, or I should say actually public safety HF oriented company. Now their head nerd, Ross Merlin, and I can't remember his call sign off the top of his head, is actually a Hawaii-based HF operator operating with a 6-acre antenna off of Oahu, which he operates remotely using his Codan radio, which is, that's their HF radio brand. It's a partner brand out of Australia. He is sort of the godfather of a lot of modern HF. If you want to know about ALE, automatic link establishment, if you want to know about advanced HF stuff, he's a good guy to talk to. And I think it'd be good to see for everyone to see how the other side of HF works, because there is commercial HF. There's HF sideband, there's HF digital voice, which is really, a popular thing. So I'm going to try to get Ross in. If you guys want to read Ross's papers, and like I said, he's in my eyes the godfather of commercial HF or public safety HF. So that's a future one that I'm working on, is getting Ross and maybe some of those other guys. And let's see, that took us up to about August. I've got a couple of other feelers beyond that. I'm really working hard on trying to bring in additional guest speakers, because everyone's kind of tired of hearing what I have to say doing programs. So why don't we get other subject matter experts in on it? Thoughts on guest speakers, though? I don't want to overload the program schedule with guest speakers.
Well, as long as they can make it, I mean, load them up. I think it's a good thing to have, just in case anyway. Schedules change, people's lives change, and everything. If you can get people on the docket, that's a good thing. Fill that space. Today, I might need you to fill a bit more space, considering I only have a small program on soldering and soldering techniques. I brought in some gear, some flux, and a couple other things. And Meshtastic, we're going to do a blurb on that too. And there might be a little bit of time needed there to fluff if you can.
Yeah, well, I absolutely can. I've got a 25 slide deck on home building. I had initially thought that when I got the suggestion to do home building, that we would do a show and tell of home builds. But then my thought was that maybe I ought to do this first, so that people think about the home builds they've had, and that we add a show and tell and personal experiences talks, and have a series of them that we can schedule in advance. So that's sort of my thought, is that this will be the introduction to home building. How do you get started? What is home building? How do you progress? All that stuff. And then we can follow on later in the year with that show and tell.
Right.
So 2 things to go along with what you're talking about next month. Next month, the meeting falls on Mother's Day, so we need to change that, figure out what we're gonna do there. And also, I was looking up on the program committee, the chair is supposed to be the vice president, but currently it's William, so we're gonna need to change that. 2 other things.
I thought we clarified that last time. I thought that the vice president was automatically the chair in the previous constitution and bylaws, but not in the current one. So yeah, we need to verify that.
That's what it looked like on the website. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, we'll verify it.
Okay. Sorry, Joe, you got anything else?
Not for right now, but afterwards.
Just back to
No,
Mother's
no. Yeah, so I will say that if it is the requirement currently in the Constitution and bylaws, I will probably ask for that to be waived, because I think it's better to have, or in the main meeting as a member, I will make a membership motion to change that, because I think it's better to have a willing party in the program's chair than just an appointed party who, isn't geared up for it. Programs is critical to the success of this club.
Make you wear another hat. They're already
All
pretty
right.
stacked.
Yeah. One other thing, I agree, Wayne. One other thing is, Mother's Day. I did check with Kamana Center, and they have the 18th available. But I have to let them know tomorrow whether we want the 18th
Okay.
or we want to go with the 11th.
Another Constitution and bylaws question then, and I'm going to cruise over to Byark.net. Are we allowed to change the date of a membership meeting? I know we can do the programs, but those semi-annual meetings, are the dates set in the Constitution and bylaws?
It just says May and November. It doesn't specify a specific
Perfect.
date.
Thank you.
I moved that so that's a week back, right?
Yeah, a week forward to the 18th, from the
The
11th to the 18th.
I moved that we move the meeting date from the 11th to the 18th.
Sean seconded.
All in favor of moving the meeting from the 11th to the 18th?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So,
I'll advise the Kamana Center.
thank you.
So I moved and Sean seconded?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was Tony moved, Sean seconded. Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Okay. One other thing for Rich Williams. William, at some point in the past, you had mentioned the IEEE maybe has a contact or somebody that could do a presentation or engage with us. So I don't know if that's
Yeah,
still.
so since we last talked about the IEEE, we were talking at that time that the IEEE, the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers, Hawaii section was interested in splitting off a subsection specifically for Hawaii Island. And I was communicating that to the board and the possible interactions that can happen. That petition process has completed, and that subsection is officially in existence now, as of last month. The chair for the Hawaii Island subsection is me. And we have an interim board in place. It's so new, we have not even yet met. However, that is definitely going to open opportunities for collaboration between the club and the IEEE. The IEEE subsection actually specifically listed in their petition a desire to partner with the Big Island Radio Club in things like the education and outreach activities at the schools and supporting STEM education, and also seek to get the support of that committee on other STEM education efforts, things of that nature. And with that, that helps to, sort of advertise and bring in potential speakers and stuff like that from the IEEE, or I should say actually members of the IEEE. So there'd be, from industry, from government, from academia, but there's a lot of possibilities that are possible there. It's still in its infancy. Like I said, that got declared in February. And then, as you guys have known, since the end of February till now, I've been essentially missing. Largely because of travel, and then this last week because of travel-related illnesses. So give me a little bit of time to get caught up on that, and I'll let you know the status and likely time frame.
Very good, thank you.
I had an idea. Can you hear me, William? Nope.
I didn't hear that. Go ahead.
Just making sure you can hear me. I didn't know. This is Sean.
Yeah.
I'm off camera too. I have an idea and it just kind of came up when I became a hand a little over a year ago. I got a Handvoice phone, a VoIP phone. I noticed that Mark is quite involved with that. Maybe this man here. I'd love to see a setup. Like, let's do something ad hoc field kind of setup as a presentation. I set up my phone, I got it running, and I have left it as such. I don't even think we've used it for our net control, but yeah, if you guys could do some kind of thing to inspire me to keep that thing.
So Sean, what we've got is, it was actually a bunch of hams that got together statewide. And
Yeah.
it was through the Hawaii Mainland All-Star Network group
Right,
on their Arden Mesh.
I'm on it too.
And so basically, we've got a bunch of stations that have these phones. We don't use them that often.
No.
But typically, I think most of us are connecting through WH6AV's station on Maui. Nobody has set up, to my knowledge, a PBX server for that phone system on this island. I had intended to. I was actually going to set up a PBX server on that Pi that I lent to you, but then I realized I would never have time to do that. And so,
Well, I'm in
I never
touch
did
with
it.
Jesse. Him and I talked because we were playing a thing called Reticulum. And he brought this up to me. He goes, well, Sean, blah, blah, blah. I have this, presentation, probably you guys have seen, or maybe Mark too. He's pretty involved with the VoIP
yeah.
phone stuff. He's on Discord. But it's just nice to figure, you guys could figure out a way to present that to the club.
So I've got 3 VoIP phones, those
Sure.
Grandstream phones that are sitting collecting dust. And I've also got 2 computers that are connected into that network.
Well, and Jason has just got one. I've had one for over a year. They're all connected to that network.
Yeah, I'm on that, so
See,
Tony's
I mean,
system there
it's
as
just
well.
an idea, you guys. You want to hear a program idea? That's what I'm interested in. Otherwise, I mean, I'll go ahead as hams do and just do my thing. Because I do have that support.
Were you thinking of setting up a PBX server?
I wasn't thinking of anything, my friend. I was thinking of realizing, like you just said, that phone's been sitting there in the back of my couch. I'm in retreat.
Well, that's kind of the next step.
I would just love somebody who is involved, like C4FM. If you're involved in something, tell me the new ham about it. Inspire me.
So I actually have admin access to Jesse's. You probably forgot that I do,
You probably did.
but I can log into Jesse's interface remotely, and I can add PBX stations to his PBX server. So I can actually allocate new 4-digit phone numbers.
I think a review would, trying to build infrastructure, I mean, it's just like the infrastructure,
But I
is
hate
what it is.
depending on someone on another island
Yeah.
for our communications. That's
Oh, I
why
agree.
I
but
wanted it to be here.
It becomes that who's gonna own it thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's the realistic, if you're talking about that. I'm just talking a very basic, like, this is a phone, this is why it's used. This is why guys like a few of us on the table here have it plugged into our device. And recent techs are using them. Jeremy, Jason, and there is no net. There's nothing other than plug it in, Jesse wires it in.
So it's really neat. I can actually access any of the repeaters through my VoIP phone,
Yeah.
right? And we can do conference
It's a really
calls.
good tool. So
Uh,
talk about it to us.
Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't mind, being part of a presentation on that topic, but much
love
later in the year.
Yeah, whenever. I just love to hear more about it. And Jesse, kind of when I talk to him, he just reminds me that, I have this thing, it's very ad hoc, I can set it up, then you've got 1,000 connections. Boom.
It's very
Yeah.
cool.
It's
It is.
very scalable.
All I've talked to Tony on it, that's it. And
Yeah.
Well, you came to mind, bro. Jesse was telling me about this, so.
Well, we'll put a
So
pin
what's
in
the,
Yeah.
what's the actual name of this VoIP phone system that you guys are talking about?
So the software that runs the PBX.
It is
um,
Asterix, I know that, but I'm talking about is there it's a Hawaii Mainland All-Star Network system that's currently set up. Does it have a name?
So the software itself that's running that Asterisk runs under is Ultimate PBX. That's like the PBX software, Ultimate PBX.
Yeah, but
Um,
I heard Sean say something, it started with ham, but I couldn't tell if it was ham WAN or if it was a different thing.
Oh, no, I'm just using hams, using VoIP phones.
It can connect to multiple networks simultaneously. So it's
Yeah.
not dedicated to any given network. So I've got a line that runs on the Hawaii Mainland All-Star. I also got a line that runs on ham VoIP. I believe
Ham
is what-
VoIP, that's what I was looking, that's what I
That's
heard.
a mainland thing.
That's the old soft, yeah, they're moving.
I never
That's great.
used the ham VoIP line. I've only used the Hawaii Mainland line.
I have, but it's kind of proliferating differently because of AIX and some of the other.
But the underlying network, it can run on any underlying network.
Yeah, I understand the technology. I'm trying to make myself notes because I'm going to add this as a future program. So I have hams using VoIP phones, possibly with HMASN, possibly ham VoIP, possibly other groups setups as a program for the future.
Yeah, and I liked the Ultimate PBX, but I don't know if somebody else is working with some other PBX software. Maybe the Ultimate PBX is pretty neat. It's got a lot of features, a little bit complicated, but very flexible, and it's free.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you can, show how these infrastructures work, the topologies of them, but I think there's more of the approach of this is VoIP, this is PBX.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that we could probably split this program into 2 bits into the same program, even with 2 speakers, and we can show hams using VoIP phones.
Yeah.
Display the asterisk side of that a little bit. Don't go into it, into too great a detail because it only excites a few of us. But then use that as the pivot to talk about All-Star Link and how that same underlying technology is used for the link repeaters of Hawaii Mainland All-Star Net and many others, and is the underlying foundation to the fork that we did, stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
You're right, William. There are so many different pathways you could go down on this topic.
Yeah.
I would just suggest we do a demo of a little mesh network, our own private mesh, where we have 2 systems communicating over Arden.
Yeah, because one of the things reminded me of the whole thing when I first got into Arden and All-Star was its portability. To kind of build the ad hoc network.
Yeah.
Back to ECOM, that kind of, cornerstone of image.
How basically we can set up our own telephone. We can be our own telephone company over RF on the ham bands. That kind of idea.
Cool.
So another-
I like your idea. You want to.
Yeah, no, that'll be a good
But
program or
even
a
like-
couple of programs.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So we can build on our knowledge, go,
Yeah.
try some stuff.
We got
Lots of potential.
Yeah. So that,
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, there was nothing that was it for the programs.
Program.
Okay, and I just had another thought just now. We bring up Jesse an awful lot. Maybe we ought to have Jesse come do a, or Zoom in, whatever, do a talk about everything he's got his fingers stuck into, Hawaii Mainland All-Star Network and everything.
William, I just spoke to him last week because him and I are playing with some stuff that I won't talk about right now. I mentioned that to him. Because he brought this up to me, this conversation we're having right now. Well, sure, and I saw this a few years back. He does that presentation, it's on YouTube, huh? I said, why don't you come and talk to this club, huh? You know way of Jesse Biggin, he's elusive.
When he reaches me, it's like 11 at night. Johnny, you there? And he's talking through reticulum or some other crazy thing he's playing with. But yeah, man, I would really like to get him on board. I'll try. Maybe you can too, Bill. We can hit him from a few point of views. Sometimes he clicks into my net every month.
We
I
can
don't
try.
regularly interface with Jesse, so why don't you take the lead on that, Sean?
I'll try. Yeah, he comes and goes. I guess he's elusive, but yeah, I'm working with these guys with some stuff on Arden right now. He's wiring the halves with WireGuard, all the services.
Tony, can we accept comment from a member before we even talk about making a vote or anything else? Just during the meeting, was like Jim Taylor over here wants to talk about the raffle and the monthly committee reports. Can we ask him for his input?
Well, typically, I mean, this conversation that we're having right now is under the programs line item. So if it were a program, that would fit in here. But actually, didn't you have a separate line item to talk about the raffle that we'll get to shortly?
Right, also, someone else, a question for you, but we can do that afterwards.
We can factor that in when we get to it.
Yeah, so the board previously set a policy to confine public comment until after the meeting agenda items, because we were, having hijacked conversations during the executive board meeting. But that is a line item in the agenda. And I had once added a thing about reviewing previous board policies, but then I couldn't make that next meeting because my wife's surgery got moved back to that week. So I don't know what that ever ended up as.
Yeah, we can put that review and codify any surviving new policy. That's today.
Okay.
All right. Well, yep, we got some good stuff to go into for following programs, at least seeds for programs. That's good. If that was it, then we'll move on to public service communications. And
So Les isn't here, but actually Jim and I are both on the committee. We did not have a committee meeting, but I would like to bring a couple of things up to the just to the attention of the board in general, so you know some of our options. You probably know that I, through VOAD, participate in the Citizens Core Council, which meets monthly at the Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency. They have about 20 groups that participate, and that includes Neighborhood Watch and CERT. Sometimes the fire department gets there, but it's the venue for both county agencies and nonprofits to get together and work together in coordinating a wide variety of activities, including disaster preparedness. So Bill Hansen invited us and all the groups, which includes BIARC. BIARC falls under, we're members of VOAD. So he invited us to share our calendars, both BIARC and Aries, with the Citizens Core group, so that if we had any activities that were coming up that would be germane to some of these other groups, we could publish it on their one calendar and get the word out to all the other people that are interested in disaster preparedness and, CERT teams and Red Cross, all the other groups.
Does
Question.
that include, like, say you're doing nets or something, nets, so you can publish? Me and Joe have been talking about how to.
This one.
It's something
Not-
completely different.
not
Okay, never
necessarily
mind.
nets,
I
no.
don't wanna go off on something.
So this would be things like Makani Pihili, for example, the upcoming exercise. If BIARC or Aries are planning on organizing and participating in the Makani Pihili, which is complicated because it's a state thing and it's also a county thing, and it happens during the week. So that was one, the discussion came up in the context of next month's Makani Pihili. And Bill asked if we could share, if we were having any plans for a communication drill. Another example is the simulated emergency test that happens typically in October. and the USGS Great Hawaiian Shakeout, the earthquake drill that we have. So those are 3 examples of the types of things that would involve potentially BIARC members, ARES members, which are both, within VOAD. And so through VOAD, we would bring that up to the larger Citizens Corps Council group. So I would like to pursue that. I have to finalize probably the Makati Pahili. Probably makes sense for ARES to spearhead that, or BIARC. I'm not sure. It could actually fall under either or both. But I'd like to pursue exploring with civil defense what we can do as the part of the Makani Pahili. Now, what he has right now is, I believe it's I don't have the exact date. It's the Thursday during Makani Pahili. He's planning an amateur radio get together at Auntie Sally's here in Hilo. And basically they're inviting all amateur radio operators that are interested in emergency communications to come talk about this topic. And they're kind of providing the forum for us to discuss. So that's the first thing that's coming up. And then the next other things that I think we should, as part of the Public Service Communications Committee, explore is how we can work together with Hawaii County Civil Defense and others in planning the set and the great Hawaiian Shakeout events coming up later in the year. So that would be my plans for the PSCC. I'm not the chair, Les is the chair. So I'm sure he has other plans. We have not met yet to discuss this.
So, you're kind of new to this. Is there typically systems you guys look to use like GMRS, C4FM, or?
No, most
Or
of
is it like how, from our point of view, since kind of can't, or is it about deployment, organization?
what we've done in the past is typically focused around VHF and HF. So it's typically voice point to point. And we've also sometimes used repeaters, and we've also used WinLink. Now, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't want to incorporate other forms of digital communications. That's a possibility.
Would there be a time to introduce other things like Meshtastic or?
It wouldn't be a time to introduce it. It would have to be something that had been practiced and we know is
Oh,
working.
So like APRS maybe?
Yeah,
Practice.
if it's something that is working and stations are familiar with it and they feel comfortable using it already, then it's something we could introduce into an exercise. But it's not, this is not the point where we're testing new things out. It's the point where we know that they work and we're making sure that we know how to use them and that they indeed do work. So
Does anybody have the dates for this year's Makani Pahili? I can't find it on the Guard's website.
I do have it somewhere here.
So I didn't think to look in email. I might have it in email.
Yeah, an email did go out. I'm thinking it's the 9th through the 13th. It's a whole week.
Yeah.
Of May. I don't have that email in front
Yeah,
of me
we'll,
right
we'll dig for it. So the reason I was asking is when I said I'm trying to get a public safety professional in, I'm actually trying to get somebody from the National Guard or from CST. So
CST.
Civilian support team.
civil support team, but yeah, it's a U.S. Army unit type. We've got the I think 83rd CST on Oahu, and that is who when like Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency needs to call in the Jolly Green Giant, or let's say the fire department needs to call them in. That's who provides like support for I mean, generally not hurricanes, but say sea burn incidents or something like that.
they carry certain types of communication gear with them.
All of it.
So it's a matter of what they deploy at that time, given circumstance.
Well, like they're on the Highwind State P25 radio system, just so that they can interoperate. They aren't on the county system, but because the county's the only system that's VHF statewide. Everyone else is 7,800. We've got the ability for them to communicate from the Highwind system to the county system, plus deploy them cache radios from the county system. Plus, they have the ability to talk on pretty much any frequency in any modulation, including our frequencies if needed. Now, things that have to get pretty bad before they were willing to do that because of the rules that they operate, because they're not under the FCC, they're under the NTIA. But there's actually a legal procedure in place to authorize that, stuff like that. But yeah, so I mean, they're not just about comms though. So that's why I was thinking maybe National Guard, because National Guard has a CST interface. So instead of having one of the full-time RA CSTs, we could have the National Guard side of CST, and then we're talking more to the sandbaggers and their view of the citizen side of emergency response and disaster preparedness and stuff like that.
Well, William, if you can, get any interest in that, maybe it would work best through Oxcom, and then perhaps FIARC could kind of support the initiative by getting the word out.
Yeah, well, and that's why I was asking, because if it's relatively close to Makani-Pahili, instead of doing a Makani-Pahili hot wash in June, then we could do it in July during that, trying for a public safety professional. So we could combine the club's hot wash, which I guess at that point would be a warm wash, and that into a single meeting.
Yeah, I look at it from the opportunistic point of view. Whenever there's anyone who's willing to reach out and invite us, I try to strike when the opportunity's hot. And it's kind of, the Makani-Pahili, it is a state focus, but also all the counties are invited. But the extent to which each county participates varies. And so I haven't actually gotten a lot of information yet as to the extent that Hawaii County is going to participate in it. So my thought was to recommend to Aries that we have our own little segment, regardless of what the county does. And if the county invites us, then we play ball with them. But if they don't end up doing anything, then we have our own standard hub and spoke style exercise, basically following the pattern that we've used in previous years.
A different motivation, but that's also kind of my motivation in this case for trying to get somebody from the National Guard, because they're under the state DOD with HIEMA, and it's all the same family there. So I didn't want to just keep beating on Hawaii County Civil Defense. I mean, they've been so great as to let us into their EOC for a meeting. I'm trying to bridge out beyond that, but also get that input from beyond that as well. And since this is the state's thing, it falls under the National Guard, under DOD with HIEMA. So that's why I'm thinking maybe we can move that Makani-Pahili hot wash for whatever it is we do and make July all about that. And then that gives me a hook to getting somebody, whereas just asking someone to come talk is one thing. But if I say, hey, come talk, and we're going to be talking about your, event, your session, your training, that makes it easier for them to justify to their command. So that's why I'm asking.
Sounds like a good strategy to me, William.
I like it.
Very
All
good.
right.
Well, and the reason I'm pushing so hard is because that involves me reaching out to a state agency So I just want to make sure I'm representing the club's desires when I do that. So thank you for letting me beat that dead horse.
I like it. I like that group showcase and just like lab or whatever it is, you know. A lot of us like to get our hands on things, wrap it around some type of idea.
David? Just got one question. I think, Tony, you can probably answer this. The Community Resilience Initiative. How does that dovetail into Citizen Corps
Yeah, I
and
was wondering
the
about that.
civil defense and the whole strategy?
I'm not sure yet, although I can say that civil defense has strong influence over it.
Is that
I'll
what,
put it that way.
there's Doug talked about that a little yesterday. Was that even referring?
Yeah, it's
So,
continually.
I believe
referred to.
Department of Health is involved. Civil defense is involved. I'm pretty sure that Vibrant Hawaii has a,
Yeah.
and then there's several other players that kind of are part of that. They're interested in the money, right? So there's
Yeah.
money, and so there's several groups that are interested in becoming represented. And I couldn't give you the full picture, but those are some of the players.
Yeah, I think they were promoting a Starlink kind of setup.
Right. But it all is synergistic, you know,
Yeah.
in one way or another with what amateur radio does.
Okay, thank you.
Voice Two Peters.
There were no actionable items from public service communications part. That was pretty much just detailing everything. Okay,
What we're doing.
just clarifying, just in
Tough
case.
story. I like it.
Voice repeaters. Yeah, no.
Anybody on Voice Two Peters?
I haven't, but I know it.
Yeah, well, Trevor and I have communicated a little bit, not a ton, because like I said, I've been, AWOL for over a month.
Oh, yeah.
We are working on the transition still, trying to divide up the tasks between the old committee and the new members of the new committee. And we are still trying to get those dates pinned down. We've got the ownerships worked out. And we are prioritizing the VHF repeater on Mauna Loa. We haven't figured out who's going to pick up the gear from Tony's house, but the gear that Jim Tater donated is earmarked for that. And that is probably going to be the next thing that completes. I don't really have much else to report because I've been AWOL.
That's something.
Yeah, anything moving forward, right on.
Yeah, no, I'm on that. Thank you, William.
Let's see, old business, Jim, you had proposed raffle changes there? Was there something you wanted to
Yeah.
speak of?
You talked about making it the odd number off where can you explain what you talked about?
Well, at the last meeting, it was approved to do the raffle with half of the money going to the infrastructure fund, the other half going to the members, and then Roy asked about, well, how much is it gonna be each time? We said, okay, so if it was settled on, it would be $5 for each poll. But the problem is that can leave up to $9 at each meeting. And my thing that I emailed you about was I would just like to have you folks vote on the fact that if we have any odd amounts of money up to $9, that would be raffled out at the lesser amount with if it's a 5, 7, or 9, the $5 would go to the infrastructure fund, the $4 or the lesser amount would go to the member with that winning ticket.
Okay.
And that way, because I don't want to try to keep saving that odd money till the next meeting. That way, every meeting I turn the money over to Tony and he can deal with it whenever he feels like it. But at least it's complete for the meeting.
Not rolling over.
Yeah. It's
Why is
not
it
hanging on.
$9?
Pardon?
I
Well,
didn't-
it could be $1. It could be, if it's just $1, that would just go to but if it's like $2, I'd say just fund it out and give the $1 away and the $1 in and get
It's a whole dollar amount.
Yeah, and whole dollar amounts are not thinking of 50 cents. That's ridiculous.
And you're selling.
Okay, so what?
You're selling it for $1 each, but instead of holding it until there's a $10 value, or giving the whole $9 to the infrastructure fund, which would be nice, but I think the members would rather see some of that money come back to them too, just in all fairness. And that way just to kind of balance it out. And that way we meet our legal part of at least 50% or more goes to the club function.
Thomas, I think Hank may have had a. Did you have a
Oh,
comment?
he's already bought tickets.
Oh, okay.
So
He bought
if I
tickets.
remember correctly, the legal requirements in Hawaii are that the tickets cannot cost more than $10. So $9 is safe. And the no single prize can exceed $500 in value, and the total pot cannot exceed $3,000 in value, I think.
Something like that, but we're
No
way
problem.
below
It's
that.
way below that.
The tickets are $1, William.
You know,
$1
we're
is what
selling
they're
tickets
selling.
for $1 each, but every month when we have a meeting, if any amount over each $10 increment, I would just like to have that also raveled off. And so much, the greater amount go to the club and the lesser amount go to the winner. Or if it's like $8 or $6 would be split, 50-50 split.
Just for clarification, let's have an example. Let's say we sell 51 tickets today.
Well, then 51 tickets, the $1 goes to the club. You sell 52, you raffle one more ticket for $1, the guy gets his dollar back.
Wait, okay, $51 in tickets sold.
Yeah,
How many polls are there?
that's 5.
5.
That'd be 5 polls because, and then the odd dollar
And
is,
in each poll gives how much to,
well, $5 to the club and $5 to the winner.
okay.
So it's $10 per.
5 polls, $25 to the club, $25 to
To the, well, it'd
Member.
be whoever happens to have the winning
whoever
ticket
has the win. So 5 people that have the
Yeah.
winning tickets. And then the $1 left over
would go to the club.
will go to the club. So
That way we meet the 50% requirement at least. And by then, I don't have that money just laying around loose. I don't want to keep in books for. And then if it's 52, if it comes out $52, just that last raffle would just be $1 for the club, $1 for the winner. And 53, it's still only $1 for the winner, but $2 goes to the club.
okay, if we're going to be making a motion on this, it's going to be hard to word.
I know,
Okay.
that's why.
Hold on, let me interject here. I just double checked, and what I was remembering was from a bill in 2013 that didn't pass. I think this is actually legal in the state of Hawaii still.
Okay, let me put out one more thing. There's some prizes that have been made available. I have 2 sets of the ARRL 100th anniversary edition that I can give away. And I suspect we may have some other prizes we could potentially, like we had talked previously at previous board meetings about having prizes. Would we want to make it part of the raffle, or would we want to just keep it as a separate door prize, perhaps?
Totally. I don't know what's best.
I think if we make it part of the raffle, we're encouraging people to participate in the raffle.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think so too.
But-
Because I just want, this is free to the club.
My-
Your stuff.
My question is like the set of books is like $70, right?
It's a big prize,
It's
yeah.
a big price, so we don't wanna, somebody spend $1 and get that, if they're only getting 5 normally. You know, we gotta make it-
prizes like
We
that.
gotta make it, either more money or something.
Definitely.
Well,
Hold on. You guys didn't hear what I said. The framework that I had read off before, I was remembering from a bill that was introduced in 2013. That bill did not pass. So we can still do a prize drawing, but not a raffle. No payment or donation can be required or implied for entry.
Okay. So it would have to be separate.
Separate from the raffle.
Yeah, separate from the
It'd have
raffle
to be
completely to
separate.
keep it legal there.
Is that what
Yeah,
you're
that's
saying?
not a raffle, it's a drawing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can use it to maybe, advertise a request for donations and then have the prize drawing to draw people to that location. But we cannot connect the drawing entry in any way to an actual or implied monetization.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't ready to do it this month anyway, but Sean did have something.
Well, if they want, they can certainly,
We could wait till next
Just
month.
as valid piece of equipment. It's new hardware. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Can, it's gonna be just as free next.
Okay, sounds like we need to keep the drawing a separate issue then.
And then we'll just give away these things as a cash prize, a prize fee.
Okay, so back to the motion on the table regarding the raffle.
I would say, since we're still want to make a decision on this, what I would recommend is if we have an odd amount of money over each $10 increment, we'll just keep that, the odd amount, on the books and then add it to next month's amount.
Okay,
And then by that time, everybody should be able to come up with a
so a number between
Acceptable.
$0 and $9.
acceptable amount of money and then go from
The
there.
raffle fund.
Might be easier for the word.
Oh,
Yeah.
are we gonna call it the raffle fund?
No, I would call it the prize fund because again, a raffle is illegal in Hawaii. A prize drawing is legal.
A prize, okay. The prize fund. So the prize fund, every ticket that's bought, $1 goes into the prize fund at the end
No,
of
you
the
can't.
meeting.
You can't do that.
Oh,
It's you. What you would say is that we solicit donations, and then either X% of the donations, or anything like that. But we cannot. I'm trying to read this verbatim here. I'm trying to see where it went. If the participation is entirely free and donations are strictly voluntary, in no such cases may payment or donation be required or implied for entry.
And that's-
we're talking about a raffle here, right?
No, we're not. Raffles are illegal.
Oh.
You're confusing two issues right now. That's why I say just back up.
So we can do a fundraising drive and then use that to fund a prize drawing that anybody can enter without having to donate. That is legal, but an actual raffle is not legal in the state of Hawaii.
Okay. But if we could start that too, early
What's the
in the
definition of
next
it?
2 or 3 months with that price thing. To like build it up to July or something. When we have a certain event.
I'm, pardon me if I'm confused here. I think you're confusing two issues. One is the prize drawing. The other are the raffle tickets. That is a raffle, isn't it? The one that you're selling $1 for? That's what Jim was talking about.
Right, and
That's not.
what, okay, so let's take the whole prize thing off the idea of giving away the ARRL handbooks or giving away the whatever, Meshtastic note. We're not talking about that now. I think what we have on the table right now is William expressing the idea that what Jim has proposed is illegal. Is that correct, William?
That is correct.
Yep, and it's gotta be what you said earlier.
Yeah,
With time,
That's the
if they'll
definition of
come
a
to
raffle.
this, you can get a ticket, they don't have to pay for it. Get a ticket. So it's more about people just.
so basically we would have to give somebody, if they ask a ticket.
I'm fine with it.
I've seen a lot of other groups do this kind of thing. And I think William is correct, because I did look into this several years ago when GTE Hawaiian Tel was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
That technically everybody that does it, they're like right on the line of being illegal, because they don't tell you that there's a way to get it for free, that you get an
And
entry for
Fong
free.
does this, and his little thing, he does is have prizes, and people either donate the money or don't, they can still have the food, they can still have the prize, and it actually turns out pretty good. Because people are generous, they will,
So William, you understand Jim's mechanism, right, of what he's proposing here?
Well, let's not assume that I do. Let's hear it.
Okay, we're talking about, we have these tickets, they are raffle tickets, a big ass roll of them, right? So we could say that you will get a ticket for each $1 donated?
We cannot do that.
You use it for a prize fund.
It's what
You
the
can't do that either.
order after.
You cannot attach a chance or anything to the financial side of it. So what we can do is we can distribute the tickets for free and solicit in parallel to that a donation to the club, and we can state however we want that, maybe X% of this will be used for prize purchases.
But then only one person gets one ticket. In that situation, with what you're describing, each person would have only one ticket.
Yes, because you're not allowed to. I mean, I guess we could give out as many tickets as they want, but that kind of defeats some of this.
You'd have to give out, if you're giving out 5, you'd have to give out 5 to everyone, is what you're saying.
You'd have to have a rule that says people can have as many tickets up to a threshold or whatever, or you could just say one ticket or whatever the case may be. But we cannot set the chances to any sort of funds that we receive from them. It has to be equal across the board for people who do pay and people who don't pay. And we cannot require a payment to increase chances. We cannot require a payment to get a ticket, anything like that.
Could you give me a statutory reference?
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to pull that back up.
I think you're gonna have to, sounds like I was reading the wrong law.
Sorry,
But
I think
know.
we can still use the tickets, we can do this, we just have to train.
Yeah, we're gonna have to think about it a
Yeah,
little more.
let's table this
some
till
time.
next month, maybe.
Because I think it's a good way to get funds and create interest.
Is that a motion?
Okay, I move that we table this till next month.
I'll go ahead and second that.
Okay.
All in favor of tabling this until we
Aye.
have a proper nomenclature to the rules of this. At least table now until, yeah, I'd rather it be now as opposed to later.
Let's
Okay.
note that a non-board club member has joined the meeting. Welcome, Bob.
Bob. Hey, Bob. All right. With the pin in that, we're gonna go ahead and move on to new business with audio video recordings, publishing and retention. And I did hear part of this conversation on the repeater there, but I was out of range. I could only hear it. I couldn't even comment like during your conversation. And it was kind of,
Okay,
I
I
was
did
listening.
send an email out with a suggestion or thought
Mhm.
on how we could make everybody comfortable with the idea that we are recording audio and visual on all of our meetings. So did everybody see that?
Yes.
William, did you have a chance to see that?
I had an audio dropout. Did I have a chance to see what?
Okay, we're talking about the topic of recording our meetings and especially if they're going to be published publicly.
Yeah, I got that. But I had an audio dropout right when you said what it was and did I see
I
what?
sent an email
Oh, yeah,
that talked about that. Did you see that email?
yeah, I did.
Is there anybody here on the board that did not see that email? Thoughts on the proposal? I was basically proposing that the board meetings are for archival purposes. We're not publicizing publicly the board meetings. Any member can join a board meeting and see it while it's happening. But once it's recorded, that recording is not public. It's for archival purposes. So any board member can go back and look at it. It's mainly for the secretary, so the secretary can make minutes. That's the primary purpose of the board recording. For the club meetings, separate topic. If we intend to publish that on a public forum that anybody can join, or that anybody can see, like YouTube, for example, we need to inform the group in advance. let them know, hey, we're recording this. We intend to post it on YouTube or Facebook, wherever we intend to post it publicly. Because some people, some members are not comfortable with that. And they would want to turn off their cameras or sit in a spot where they're off camera because they do not want their likeness, their image published on the World Wide Web. So that's the issue.
I disagree with not publishing the board meetings. In the meetings that we have put on YouTube, when I was doing it, I always put both on there, and then Joe has been putting both on there. The board meetings sometimes get more views than the program. So there is a desire to see it. And in addition to that, I think it's good for transparency, but even more so, it's convenient for some of us when we review the minutes that Joe puts out to go, wait, I don't remember that right. Let me go back. And it's a lot easier to go back if it's already on YouTube. And sometimes I have to dig and find it in the drive, which I can do. But I think we ought to set one policy for all meetings, no matter what.
My only hesitation with that proposal is we really have to be careful because there's some very sensitive topics that if we're not very conscientious with how we word things, we could offend some of our partners by the things that we say. And it really does tie our hands in having a frank discussion of certain sensitive topics like relationships with other agencies. And what they do in the public sector is they'll actually publish their meeting. For example, the Mauna Kea Stewardship Oversight Authority, all of their meetings are published publicly on YouTube. However, they will adjourn to executive session for certain sensitive topics. And those executive sessions are private.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up. Now, generally, executive session involves an attorney, and it's covered by attorney-client privilege. And in that case, we would have to do it locally in the room, too. We would have to eject everyone not on the board and hold an executive session, which we could do. And we could pause the recording for that, come back, unpause the recording, close the meeting after handling any discussion that came out of executive session.
Yeah,
But-
that's a lot of trouble. Does the benefit of publishing these publicly outweigh the cost? And we also need to take into account the editing of the video, which Joe could probably speak to.
Yeah, so with the editing, I did very simple. I cut off all the dead stuff in the beginning and all the stuff at the end. And the middle, when we take a break, I cut that out. I put the wire, a logo in back and front, and that's about it.
If you could
Yeah,
start
that's
at-
largely what I did when I was editing it, too.
What?
I mean, it's
one more time, William.
Say
Sorry.
again, William?
I said, well, that's largely what I was doing when I would edit them too. I'd throw in a BIARC logo as the title card. I might add a title to it. I'll trim the section before the gavel, trim the section after the gavel, and if there was a large break, I might cut that out. Sometimes I didn't even do that.
Right. So is that
So the editing is minimal, and if we can pause a recording and restart it, if it's a single file, that's very easy. If it's two files, it's still very easy. You just drag them both into the editor and it stitches them together.
Yeah.
But do we really have cause for an executive session? I've said things in these executive board meetings that would make our agency partners uncomfortable. And I had hesitation saying it, but we've got to conduct business, but we also need to do it openly and transparently.
I agree. It's a chilling element to know that you have to second think everything ahead of time about what you're saying about your partners. You know, it's a I'll hold everything. I'm gonna do a rewind on that and I'll restate this a different way. So it's I don't know, gets very troubling.
But BIARC already gets accused of doing our own thing in secret so much. I don't want to give even the appearance of impropriety in doing that. I'd rather have to, make sure I phrase myself carefully and, maybe if something is so inflammatory, the board meeting isn't the right way to discuss it anyways, because maybe BIARC isn't the right forum to be discussing it. But I think that we need to remain open and transparent.
I agree.
And maybe some of our partners' feelings need to get bent from time to time. I mean, that is a reality.
My take was too, there was two parts to this. There are those who also did want to be published.
That's
We're
easy
talking
to
about-
solve.
We're talking about
There's two parts to it.
we're talking about the board meetings at the moment. We're not talking about the public.
Well, actually, William's proposal was to have the same policy at both,
Right.
which from a simplicity standpoint makes sense.
I guess if that's the case, we'll let them know, go up to the side. The camera's only pointing this way, and if you don't want to be heard, don't talk.
Right.
Well, and on top of that, the board can self-regulate. We have the power of censure and the power of discipline and the power of removal.
Yeah.
We are essentially a legislative body operating as a corporate nonprofit, but all those same rules still apply. We can set policies, stuff like that.
So I like the simplicity of what William's saying here. The same policy. Basically, we just let everyone know, all of these things are recorded. All of our meetings are recorded.
And self-regulate.
And if you don't want something in the permanent record, stay off camera and don't say it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, and when we're joining electronically, we get warned that it's going to get recorded by the software. And in the room, you as a habit say that you're starting the recording, but maybe we just make that required. Or maybe we, have a little notice that we post on a piece of paper we tape to the bottom of the screen, whatever, just saying
Yeah, I
that
know.
these meetings are audio and video recorded.
Yeah, simple disclaimer.
Think
And
twice
we just have a spot in the room where everybody knows the camera doesn't cover. And they can sit there if they don't want to be
Yeah,
on the.
I can't
Yeah.
see Hank. I can't see Tony.
Yeah.
Usually a blind spot here.
Can't see Sean. Now with the camera I'm using, we'd be able to see more of it, but there's still plenty of blind spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 20 degrees easy on either side. Okay, yeah, is there a motion needed for this?
Yeah, I was wondering, because it seems like.
Well, I think we should, because we want to make it published. We want the members to know.
So my takeaway, you guys, is we need to make some sort of paragraph saying it too. Would be nice, maybe on a website or something. You can go and click onto this. You're going to,
It's a policy decision. It's the policy of BIARC that all meetings will be recorded
right.
and may be published.
If you're online, you're going to see.
Unless you mute yourself or turn off your camera or sit in a
That's
spot
simple.
where,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a pretty simple.
Wordage.
Well, and as far as the retention policy goes, because that's also a part of this, I'd say that we'd say that the official record with a retention policy is the minutes. I'd say that the retention policy for the videos is dictated by any platform to which we choose to publish them, because we kind of give up some right to that, or some control of it. We have the right, but not the control. So then, maybe we give a preference for publicly publishing the meetings whenever possible, and that we can control the platform we use to do that. Currently, we're using YouTube, and that seems to work very well. Who knows what happens technologically in the future? So the original recording retention policy is then what's at question. I'd say that once that it's published and confirmed, the original recordings may be deleted.
Well, by default, they're stored in our Google Workspace. And as a
They
practical,
currently are.
right,
But what I'm saying is that they may be deleted. There's no retention period required once they're published. Because the official record with an official retention policy of the meetings is the minutes.
That's just a policy description. Somewhere.
how about all FIARC board meetings, executive board meetings and member activities are recorded and may be published publicly?
It will be.
I think it'd be something along the lines of all executive board meetings and monthly program meetings and semi-annual membership meetings may be audio and or video recorded and may be published publicly on a forum or actually a platform chosen by the BIARC board. And that the original recordings may be deleted.
We'll just say the minutes are the official, the written minutes by the secretary are the official record of the executive board meetings. The original recordings may be deleted.
Yeah, regardless of whether they've been published or not.
Now, you mentioned events, BIARC events, and immediately my mind goes to education and outreach and the fact
No,
that
we're not trying to go there.
you know,
Yeah, and that's why I clarified that it's the monthly program meetings, not the club
You worded it
activities.
differently
yes.
to not include.
However, we do video and take pictures at these events, so something to be.
Well, that's a
Consider.
separate thing
Yeah, I
because
know.
you
Yeah.
have to get approval with those pictures from the, especially if there's minors involved.
Yeah,
You have to get a
exactly.
disclosure. And that's just par for the course. Everybody knows that you don't, right? You don't publish pictures of minors without consent.
What about the handbrake?
You don't publish pictures of minors anywhere without parental consent. That's my understanding.
That's been, as far as we've been doing that.
We've done it.
Okay, so there's some exception to that. And I think that we ought to move that discussion out of this one.
Okay.
Right now, we're talking about the meetings, the board meetings, the program meetings, and the general membership meetings. So, and I think we're getting close to a motion here. I think that we clarify that the minutes are the official record. There are minutes required to be taken in the board meetings. They're required to be taken in the general membership meetings. They are not required in the program meetings, which is fine. And that we may, or we may audio and visually record any of those meetings and may publish them online, and we may delete the original recordings whether or not they've been published online. But that the preference is to do these things in publishing or recording and then publishing online before those original recordings are deleted.
Yeah.
So I so move.
Anybody say, John seconds,
Second. I think it's great.
all in favor of that wordsmithing.
Aye.
All right.
So now, the secondary piece of that, we can now talk about club activities. I have live streamed to the club's Facebook, and I think maybe also to YouTube at the same time from field day. So incidental recording of juveniles in the background during that, I believe, is fine in the United States and within the state of Hawaii's statutes. The other side of that is that if we, simply set I don't know if it could just be a club policy, or maybe if we just set a policy to put in the public notice of the event that audio video recording may occur, I think we're covered, because anyone who lets their child come to the event has been notified. Now, as far as at the schools, we have a person in a position of trust. It's not a full legal guardian, but the teachers are an authorized proxy and are required to look out for the students. They've got a duty to report because of that. I believe that if the school allows us to audio and video record, that it may be legal to do so without the individual parent's consent. Now, whether we want to, do that without seeking parental consent or giving parental notice or whatever is another topic. And maybe this isn't something we can solve at this meeting. Maybe this is something that we put on the agenda for next meeting so we can think about it, so that we can check with people and things like that.
So David, a question for you. I know sometimes the school staffs have sent us pictures and we
Yeah.
publish those.
Yeah.
Do we ever have our own photographer there taking pictures?
Well, yeah, our-
Whoever's there, like, I might take pictures.
Joe might be there, or I'll be there taking pictures,
Mark.
videos, and we also deal with the Museum of Technology and Science and Technology, who actually are hosting these events. So, and I haven't seen anything from them.
So that's nothing to do with the school.
No, but it's arranged by them through the school. We're the executor, not.
Well, and it is in a quasi-public forum. If we were doing this in some sort of private session, that might be different. But there's nothing to stop a news reporter from showing up and covering it. There's nothing to stop a wannabe media member from snapping pictures from outside the fence, and anything like that. So the rules for privacy are different between public, quasi-public, quasi-private, as in we would call within the curtilage, and fully private, even for juveniles.
Yeah. So we should probably at least have an agreement form that we use with the school going in that says, we're possibly going to be videoing, and
Well, maybe even not within the individual schools. Maybe we can talk to the state DOE and ask them if they have already considered this. They might already have a rubber stampable policy that we can adhere to at that point. We should also probably talk to our partners and ask how they feel about it, because they are taking pictures, but do they mind us taking pictures? And then we can also make that a subset of this, and then we can also talk about like field day and POTA and other activities, and we might be able to make a unifying policy around all of it. And maybe we have to set two different policies, one for other people's events that we're attending and one for our activities that we're hosting.
yeah. Well, we've shared pictures with the people that are setting these events up. but we have never been told not to, take pictures or to share them. So it's. and-
Well, they also don't have a YouTube channel, so they may not have thought of that. I mean, stuff like that.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to shut us down in that, but if we make sure that we're complying with the Department of Education policy when we're in the schools, I
Yeah.
think we're on solid footing. If they tell us no photos, no photos. They tell us photos okay, no video, no audio. Yeah, that is what it is.
Yeah.
And then we set our own policy for our own activities at that point. But if they say, you know, respectful photography and audio, video, hey, great, we can comply with that, you know, whatever the case may be. But I just don't think we should just assume.
Okay,
Well, I move that we table this issue, defer this issue to the Education and Outreach Committee for exploration and their recommendations, and table it until next month.
Sean?
Yeah. I second that.
okay.
There we go. All
Don
in
beat you
favor,
to it.
Okay, Sean seconded.
I got the quick draw.
all in favor of tabling this?
All in favor? Aye.
All right.
It's worth taking the time.
Okay. It's like two more things. Still in new business. Review and codify any surviving and new BIARC executive board policies, rules and procedures, adherence to meeting agenda.
I got one. On that, for email and approvals and votes, I suggest a supermajority of 5 members because it's very hard to get all 7 members every freaking time.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
automatically second
Yeah.
that there. Yeah, let that it.
Every time I'm
That's
waiting till the
wild.
last minute to get the last person.
Yeah.
Come on, it's ridiculous.
I believe there may be a law that dictates that that's required. Can you speak to that, William?
You'll have to give me a second. But we have a motion and a second, so are we in discussion yet?
Did we get a motion in a second?
Yeah, I thought we agreed on it. I thought we all
I had a motion.
approved. That's something different there.
No, for that,
Yeah, I mean, I was in agreement with that right there off the bat.
but, yeah,
If it's a discussable item, then we have to. Let's discuss it. But
not to say what you, I mean, is it in fact required?
yeah,
Yeah, well, okay, we have a motion, we have a second. It's time to
but
discuss.
let's discuss this and see if it is a required thing that we.
So the question is,
Hold on. I'm messed up here. Who did the email approval, first and second? Because I got the first, second, the table of motion. I didn't get the email approval. first and
right,
second.
so I would say, wasn't it?
It was me.
Thomas? You put out the motion and
Yeah,
I thought it was Joe. I thought you were the one that was.
Okay, fine, I'll do it.
Okay, so now that we're in discussion, according to 414 Delta-145, looking at a summary here, I don't have time to read the whole statute set. Requirements for email voting are unanimous written consent. All directors must agree to the proposed action in writing. This can be achieved through signed documents or electronic communications that can be retained and reproduced. The written consents should describe the action taken and filed with the corporate records. It's advisable to include these consents in the minutes of the next board meeting for transparency. We need to ensure that our bylaws do not prohibit or limit action.
That was Hawaii Revised Statutes 414?
Yeah, it was too much for me to read, so I actually asked ChatGPT to summarize that for me. So it's a ChatGPT summary of HRS 414 Delta-145.
okay, so unanimous write off on the minutes or.
I guess we can't even make a second
I guess.
motion because it's something
Yeah,
civil, so it doesn't matter.
All right, so yeah, scratch that.
We on new bit, other business yet?
Well, you can, let's vote and let's,
How can we vote if it's illegal?
Yeah, if we can't do
well,
it, then
we want to
No,
vote
we
it down.
we have to vote. So I
Gotcha.
vote to vote that motion down.
Okay.
I'll-
All in favor of voting that down?
Who's second?
Well, it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
Anyone in favor of this,
Oh,
and then who opposes the
okay.
original motion?
Oh,
We all need to oppose it.
gotcha.
We want to not be illegal.
All in favor of the motion? None. All opposed?
I,
William?
I already said opposed, sorry. Okay, so
First motion.
I believe that we can actually do this another way. The statute states unless the articles or bylaws provide otherwise, action required or permitted by this chapter to be taken at a board of directors meeting may be taken without a meeting. If the action is taken by all members on the board, the action must be evidenced by one or more written consents describing the action taken, signed by each director, and included in the minutes filed. This means that for any interim action taken without a formal board meeting, unanimous consent is required. But if we put it in the bylaws that we do an interim action that gets formalized at the next board meeting. So essentially we're I think allowed to pass interim actions subject to confirmation at the next board meeting. We can do that with whatever we set in the bylaws. And that's, you may recall when we talked about conditionally or not even conditionally, interim approval for publication of the meetings or publishment of the minutes in the Hamgram prior to the next meeting. That was how I had framed it, and that was why. We can't actually approve the meeting minutes until the next meeting. But we can, and we can't actually approve publication, but we can give them an interim approval, a provisional approval, and then Lee can use that approval with confidence that what she's publishing is likely going to be approved. And as long as we convey that's what we're doing for the minutes, that's fine. For a true emergency motion, though, it has to be unanimous. And that wouldn't be for publication of the minutes, which is our most common email task. That would be for something that can't wait until the next board meeting. Does everyone follow? I felt a little disjointed.
yeah, so interim approval of minutes can be done with a majority. And we just have to, when we publish the minutes, we say, minutes subject to full approval at next board meeting.
Yeah, we just say that they're a draft and that the draft has been reviewed by the board and will be voted on for approval at the next meeting. Something like
That's
that.
fine. Draft minutes of April 12th executive board meeting. Yeah, that's what you call it. And
Yeah.
if you want, you can put an asterisk and put at the bottom, subject to approval at next executive board meeting.
That doesn't need a vote, right?
No, that's standard process.
Okay.
Was there anything else needed,
One,
modified?
No, I think we need to make a motion there because I think we need to codify that our out of scheduled meeting motions in compliance with HRS, well, whatever it was, I think I already.
414D.
Yeah, must be unanimous and in physical or electronic written form, which must be kept with the club records. And then we have to set a retention policy for that. What was it that the statutes said? It just says, and included in the minutes or filed with the corporate records. So we either have to put the actual written consents of those motions into the minutes, or we need to file them in the corporate records. We need to save the emails. So I would say that the policy is that we must copy BIARC board, the club's Gmail account on those motions, because then that email is kept in the club's email account. And we can just consider that club email account the repository for those public records.
Okay.
Because I don't think attaching all the emails to the minutes is tenable.
I agree. I move
And
that
then-
for the
Well,
interim.
Oh, can I, before
Go
you
ahead.
move, we also need to set a threshold for the provisional votes on things like minutes, drafts, and stuff like that. And in that case, I mean, Joe had said super majority, but now that they're so provisional, maybe majority is sufficient.
Yeah, a majority, and we have to have a quorum.
Well, there's no quorum in that case because it's ad hoc voting outside of a meeting. So that's why we just go with a majority of the
Majority of
seated
the board members.
board members. Yeah.
Tony moved. Is that right? Were you about to?
Yes,
So much discussion.
I think, no, we don't really have a motion on the table. We've just been discussing the issue.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, Tony was gonna move, but I stopped him so that we could talk about that threshold.
All right.
the one thing first, do we want to add a retention 5 years?
An email retention policy?
No,
That's what that becomes. No, it's an email retention policy because if we set the policy is that we will copy the email so that it is the official repository, and then we set a separate email retention policy. So I don't think we need to include that in this vote. We just right now in this vote, whoever makes the motion says that we are required to do all interim votes, whether they be true motions on an emergency basis requiring a unanimous vote or some sort of provisional interim consensus, that the board members must ensure on all communications that BIARC board at gmail.com is copied so that that email account becomes the official repository.
okay, how about this? Interim motions of a majority of by our board members are sufficient for publication.
No, because that becomes a decision. So I move that the board codify a policy that in accordance with the Hawaii revised statutes, all motions that occur between regularly scheduled BIARC board meetings must be in written, physical, or electronic written form. And that in the electronic written form, we specify that we use email and that all emails of that fashion be to all seated board members and shall also include the club's current official email address, which at this time is biarcboard@gmail.com, so that that email account is the official records repository of those actions.
I'll second that.
So second.
Yeah, all in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
A second motion then is that for items not being a true motion, but are more of a group consensus, such as a provisional review of the executive board and general membership meeting minutes, shall be conducted in the same manner. However, since it is subject to confirmation by an actual motion at the next meeting, the threshold is a simple majority of the seated board members and shall otherwise follow the same process of including all emails for all board members, plus the same biarc.board email address for retention.
I'll second that.
I'll give you a little update.
All in favor?
I'd like it said.
Tony second.
All right.
Awkward.
Yep.
And then a third motion is a records retention policy that applies to all official records of the club. That the records retention policy shall be as dictated by the Hawaii Revised Statutes or any other applicable law or rule, and if none such exists, shall be 2 years, except that records may be retained beyond that time. So we don't have a destruction policy.
Anybody wants a second?
We move to George seconded? Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded?
Sean.
Sean.
Yeah.
Sean. Okay, sorry. For some reason, Sean's the hardest one for me to hear.
I think he's the
But
furthest.
that's fine. Yep, no worries.
Okay. Okay. Last up there was discussion on setting meeting dates to accommodate room availability. I mean, we kind of went over
Yeah,
that.
Actually,
I have one.
I don't think we're there yet. I think we need to split out that we still need to review other previous rules and procedures from the previous boards. I think we should table that to the next meeting. I so move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we'll table this until the next meeting. At least we got somewhat through.
I got
there.
one more thing real quick.
Joe.
It's really more of a question. For the monthly committee reports that need to be brought in, Jim Tate wanted to know if you need one from the refreshment committee.
No.
That's what I thought. Just want to make sure.
No, we just need an accounting for any expenditures that come out of the club funds.
Okay.
Okay, so there's one last piece we need to split out for that. Adherence to the meeting agenda. Now, this would be for both types of agendaed meetings, the monthly board meetings plus the biannual general membership meetings. I move that we table that discussion to the next board meeting as well.
Any second? All right, Sean seconds. All in favor of tabling
Aye.
this until the next meeting? All right.
Didn't we cover that in the last meeting?
Went into it.
We
He was
started.
not here, we started, but now that he's
We'll deal
part of
with
the
it next time.
conversation.
Yeah, well,
we'll-
and part of the reason I said that is because we just had the whole discussion about what is the policy on non-board member, club member input. So we need to discuss that policy before we can then, revisit adherence to the agenda, because that's going to frame how our agenda works.
I move to adjourn.
All right, second. All in favor of adjourning?
There,
Ready for the?
Nye,
Nope.
nay,
Hey, everybody.
Oh. William?
well, did we get the whole vote? Because it's just a vote on that motion. It was just me that said no, I think.
Which motion?
The motion to adjourn, I said
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
You said no.
We said yeah, you
all
said
said yeah.
no.
So we're adjourning. Majority rule.
Yeah,
Stopping the recording.